We have decided to study the relationship between life expectancy in a country versus the GDP per capita. As depicted by the worldwide trend in the Gapminder graph, these two variables are positively correlated, showing that richer countries are experiencing higher life expectancies than poorer countries. This correlation between life expectancy and GDP per capita can be explained by the fact that as GDP per capita increases, so does one's access to better healthcare and healthcare options. For example, a high GDP per capita individual is more likely to be able to pay for more advanced and efficient healthcare treatments, which can then extend their life expectancy. Furthermore, if we examine this relationship as it occurs over the course of time, one can clearly see that both of these variables have increased in value.
Now we're going to shift into examining specific time periods and events that occurred within certain countries that had an impact, either directly or indirectly, to life expectancies and GDP per capita. Throughout the early to mid-1800s that made up much of the Industrial Revolution, we see a significant amount of growth in the GDP of both the United States and Europe. With the great innovations that came from the time period, it makes sense that there is a virtually linear positive growth for both regions. The United States boasts a staggering increase from about 14 billion to 52 billion over the course of 40 years, all while maintaining a life expectancy of roughly 40 years. The United Kingdom, on the other hand, had a much more sporadic trend. Over the same amount of time, its GDP doubled from 36 to 72 billion. However, the life expectancy was much less consistent, ranging from the mid-30s up to the mid-40s and cycling throughout the range. July 28, 1914 was a day that changed the shape of the world forever. World War I began and dozens of countries were involved. GDP growth stagnated for the duration of the war. Life expectancies didn't drop majorly for most, but Russia, France, Italy, Germany, Turkey, and Serbia all took major drops right from the start. Towards the end of the war, things became much more severe. With the U.S. entering in 1917, we can see an immediate drop from the average 55 down to 47. Life expectancy numbers decreased massively in 1917 and 1918 across the board as the height of the war was reached. On October 29, 1929, a day that would later be known as Black Tuesday, the U.S. stock market crashed. This spiraled the United States into the most severe economic depression it has ever faced, and the rest of the world also felt the effects of the crisis. All of Europe, Canada, China, Australia, and Latin America were thrown into disarray. Not only were GDP ratings tanking across the globe, many countries also saw sharp declines in life expectancy because people were becoming too poor to feed themselves and their families.
A handful of years after the Great Depression, World War II began. As the war progressed, according to the Gapminder graph, the life expectancy of the countries involved either decreased or stagnated, which was in response to the high death rate of soldiers and civilians. At the same time, all of the countries involved, with the exception of the United States, experienced a decrease in their GDP per capita. This decrease in GDP per capita is likely due to debt, depletion of reserves, and destroyed infrastructure. However, in the case of the United States, instead of decreasing GDP per capita, World War II actually helped to boost it. The American industry was revitalized by the ongoing war, and many of its sectors became strongly oriented towards or completely dependent on defense production. The war's technological and scientific advancements created an expectation of innovation, which resulted in substantial increases in personal incomes and standards of living. Another factor that has direct impact on life expectancies and GDP per capita is technology. As time progresses, as seen on the Gapminder graph, both life expectancy and GDP per capita steadily increase. This can most likely be attributed to the advancements made in the fields of technology and research and development. With the process of new technologies and new goods and services being invented, introduced, and used in the economy, it enables the economy to achieve a higher level of GDP per capita. Furthermore, as developed countries make technological advancements, underdeveloped countries, usually located in Africa or East Asia, have the opportunity to take advantage of the knowledge and technology already developed and invented, a process which is known as catch-up growth. Thus, this can explain why there is an overall increase in GDP per capita over time in all countries. They build off of the knowledge of other countries.